Hi everyone, this week we're going to be taking a look at a MacBook Pro. Has a battery issue which turns out to be causing the trackpad not to work. So we're going to go ahead, get the battery replaced, get the thermal paste replaced naturally, and get this back in good shape. Happy birthday, Paula. So I did want to see the temperatures before I did the thermal paste, so I went ahead and ran the computer with the cover just kind of set on the back. I couldn't screw it back on because the battery was so puffed out. So I just went ahead and ran it with the cover not screwed on just to check the temperatures while just watching YouTube. So what we'll do, go ahead and start the tedious process of replacing the battery. Unfortunately, with this MacBook, you have to take out pretty much everything to safely remove the battery, including the entire motherboard. So sit back and watch. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery and then get started with disconnecting the pesky ribbon cables all over the motherboard. I went ahead and followed an iFixit guide. There's pretty much one for every one of these MacBooks, so if you're going to take one apart, might as well check them out. Not sponsored, just a great site to use. They also sell parts for this. I didn't buy the battery for them. I ended up just going with the cheapest one I could find. This isn't a brand new MacBook. I'm just trying to get it up and running safely again, so I just went with the cheapest thing I could find online. You can see there's quite a bit of dust built up in the fans over the years. This has never been taken apart before, so it's not in terrible shape, but there's quite a bit of dust built up. We'll get the fans cleaned out, we'll get the heat sinks cleaned out, fresh thermal paste installed, and get this running as good as it can possibly be. So what we're going to remove now is the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module, get that out of the way after the wires are off. You need to unroute them around the fan so that you can get them removed and out of the way of the motherboard for when we're removing that later. They're a little bit tricky to take off, but it's pretty easy if you just put a pair of tweezers underneath each one and pop them straight up. And after a couple of screws, we'll go ahead and get the first fan removed. We'll get a look inside there and see what's built up over the years. This is what happens when you own pets. Their fur gets in your computers. And same for the second fan, couple of screws, we'll get that pulled out, and then we can see remnants of some fur. Gibbs, I'm blaming you for this one. That's definitely your fur holdup in there. We'll get that pulled out as much as we can, but we will clean it all out later and make it nice in there. So here's the dirty fan next to the clean fan. I just took a paintbrush with some relatively firm bristles, brushed it out, and then used a squeezy ball for air. Just saves on having to buy compressed air cans. Just use the squeeze one. Gets it cleaned up. Looks good as new, so no issues there. We'll get the other one cleaned out as well and put those aside for later. So after just a ton of screws and cables removed, we're finally ready to get the motherboard pulled out. Just be careful that when you are pulling it out to make sure that you don't have any cables remaining that are still hooked up. You don't want to tear those. If you do notice, just stop, get them disconnected, and then move on before you tear any of them. There is one more on this particular model underneath that once you flip the motherboard over, you do have to get that disconnected. We'll get that done now, and it will finally be out. Fun's not over yet. So as I said before, pretty much everything has to come out of the underside of the case. I have seen posts where people said you can just go ahead and remove the battery without taking anything out, but we're going to be using quite a bit of rubbing alcohol to free the battery. We don't really want to damage anything by getting it soaked or while we're prying on the battery, poking into the motherboard or anything. So next is to get the speakers out. They do kind of hold the battery in place anyways, so we need to get those out of the way, get a couple more screws out, and then we need to start prying off the battery. I did get pretty impatient, so put the foil down as iFixit says to do, just to make sure we don't get anything on the screen. These are pretty sensitive screens, so you just want to make sure you don't get any rubbing alcohol or anything on them. I ended up going to get like an old health insurance card or something because the kit that I bought wasn't here yet, and of course, as soon as I started doing it, I heard the message that it was here. So we'll switch to the real card in a minute. I'm just going to keep prying as much as I can. Basically what you're doing is just pushing in, not really prying up on the battery, just trying to get the adhesive to separate from the case. If you do end up putting too much force on these batteries, especially in this condition, they'll probably explode, so definitely be careful if this is something you're going to try. So we'll do the outer four first, and then we'll go to the inner ones. You can see the inner ones where they're puffed up. That's actually the reason that the trackpad wasn't able to click. The bottom of the case was held on, so the battery itself was pushing up so hard on the trackpad that you could no longer click it. Maybe the issue, if you have a bad trackpad on an older MacBook, might not be the trackpad itself. It could just be that the battery is old and has expanded quite a bit. So that did end up fixing the issue. I tested it after. It didn't do any permanent damage to it, luckily, so just the battery. And just about this point, you're thinking, hooray, the battery's out, the hard part's over, but no, you still gotta get all that sticky goop off the inside of the MacBook because they really glue these in here. Apple did not want these to be a replaceable part. They were hoping that these are gonna just be, your battery dies and you buy a new toy. So it definitely worked for a lot of people to just go and trade theirs in, but if you are going to fix it, you're gonna have to spend some time scraping this old stuff off so that the new adhesive has somewhere to stick. So here's some more of the long, tedious process of just scraping it off. I ended up using plastic scrapers, the little credit card things, fingernails, and just a ton of rubbing alcohol. Once you get this on your fingers, it is there. I had to scrub and scrub and scrub just to get some of that stickiness off before I went to reassembly, so might be a good idea to wear gloves if you're going to do this, just so you don't end up with sticky, rubbing, alcohol-covered hands. And this is about as clean as I'm going to get it. It's not pretty, but at least it's not sticky anymore. There's no big blobs of the old adhesive left, so everything will sit flush in place and hopefully hold on tight for a good long time. So just for comparison, here's the old battery next to the brand new one. You can see just how much it expanded. It's quite a bit larger. Definitely got its full use out of this battery, and time to be replaced before it does end up causing a fire, exploding, whatever it's going to do. You don't want that in your house, so dispose of that properly. So time to install the new battery. We're going to peel off the adhesive protection, get it stuck down, and then reverse the whole process to get this back together. You can see here where I went a little bit wrong. The battery cells on the outside are crooked. You are going to want those lined up before you stick them down permanently. It does end up mattering at the end, so just try to make sure that those are all lined up together straight up and down. And now that we have the battery stuck in place, time for my favorite part. I'm going to get the heatsink off and get the nasty old thermal paste replaced. There's plenty there, it's just kind of hard as a rock and not transferring the heat as well as it could. You can see here I brought in some help for this one, so let's get it done. So while cleaning off the thermal paste, there was a bit stuck around the edges, so you just take a piece of plastic. You can use a toothpick as well. Tech Yes City ends up using a toothpick a lot just to get those edges nice and clean. And yeah, it looks like my wife has the same camera glitch, just can't catch that thermal paste on there. Sorry everyone that wanted to complain. Now we'll get the heatsink put back on and start getting the motherboard installed back in the MacBook. before I get the back panel reinstalled, I just have to know for sure that it is going to turn back on. Fingers crossed. Let's push that button, and there it is, back to life. We'll get it shut down and finish reassembly, give it a quick wipe down, and then just test to make sure everything is still working as it should, and then we're done. And during testing, such as the case, the temperature didn't really change that much. This is just watching YouTube. It went down a little bit. The only noticeable part is that the fans are a bit quieter when you're using max fan control on auto. So basically, we're just helping the longevity of it at this point. It's not really going to run much cooler. And there's our before and after the batteries. Thanks for watching.